What I'm about to tell you is going to sound a bit contradictory to the normal things I tell you about screenwriting on this channel. Primarily, if you're trying to break in and get noticed in Hollywood, you should be writing a script that's meant to be read, not a script to be shot. And that is 100% true. You want to have some scripts in your pocket that are solid and that are excellent reads. But there's something to consider from a script that's meant to be shot that makes your characters pop just a little more and makes your scenes significantly better. And it's a storytelling tool called character business. One of the things you do not want in your script is anything that feels stagnant. Okay, movies especially, TV shows to an extent, should have new places and new things going on pretty much all the time. And this point mostly pertains to scene locations. I'll get to the characters in those scenes in a second. But if we go back to the same place too often in a movie, it feels like the story isn't progressing or moving forward. We're just revisiting the same thing over and over again. That's stagnant and that's bad. And actually, a good rule of thumb in a movie is to try and have every scene in a new and unique location. Now, you can't always do that, especially if you're writing a contained script and there's ways around it, but you want to be thinking every time you're in a new location, how is it different from the previous location? TV shows have standing sets, which help reduce production costs, so about 30 to 40% of the scenes in TV shows are in similar locations. And there are tricks also to make those locations feel like new locations. But what I really want to talk about is not the scene locations themselves, but what the characters are doing in those scenes, also known as character business. Because something else that makes a scene feel stagnant, even if we're in a new location, is for the characters to just exist in the space and just say lines of dialogue. Scenes where they're only standing around talking or where they're only sitting around talking. Now, if you have captivating dialogue, you can get away with this a little bit more, but giving characters business, giving them something to do, just makes the characters and the scenes more interesting. Yes, sometimes characters just stand around and talk, but most of the time, characters, at least one of them, is doing things within a scene. They are doing some business. They don't just sit and talk normally. Now, yes, sometimes that's required, but again, it's usually not the case. Someone is tinkering with something, or cleaning something, or putting laundry away, or stripping a gun, or trying on clothes, or filing paperwork, or watering plants, or sharpening a sword, or field dressing a deer, or starting a fire, and the list goes on and on and on. But normally what happens is one character, typically the character who owns the space more, it's more their space, is the one you have to worry about first. Give the owner something to do. So when you're in a new location, you can ask, okay, whose natural habitat is this? If it's a home, it's the host. If it's a doctor's office, it's a doctor. If it's an office, it might be the boss. Okay, who's the owner of the space or of the characters that are involved? Which one owns the space more than the others? And they are the ones that you need to make sure you're giving business to first. And then what happens is the other characters are now going to react to what the owner is doing. So the owner is going to act and every other character is then going to react. And suddenly everyone will have business in a scene and it won't feel stagnant. So if you're in a doctor's office, the owner is the doctor. And what is the doctor doing? I mean, what is their business? And here's the thing, yes, it's a script, it's meant to be read, but readers are savvy and they know that characters in a story that are doing things are actually characters that a real life actor might want to actually play. So by giving your characters business, it makes the script feel cinematic, it makes the script feel marketable, it makes a script feel more Hollywood-like. And the reader knows the script in and of itself, it may not get made, but they know the writer knows how to write dynamic characters because you are giving your characters business, and that's what you want to do. You want them recommending you as a writer, and giving business to your characters is one way to help give the impression that you know what you're doing as a screenwriter. So if you go and read the script you're working on right now and the characters are primarily standing or sitting around and talking, You gotta fix that by giving them some business. Maybe not every scene, okay? Sometimes if you think about it though, that sitting and talking, that has to be earned. So if it's the first scene they're together, no, give them some business. But if there's some emotional stakes going on and we need to like sit and have a conversation, that's fine. But not every scene should be like that. Most scenes should have characters doing business. And one other side tip for those of you interested in directing your own things, actors don't always seem nervous, but many of them are. And one way to combat this is to give them something to hold in their hands or something to do in a scene. Give them a yo-yo to play with, or a pen to sign papers, or an apple to eat, or a hockey puck to play with while they're talking. It will automatically help the actor give you a better performance, and you're giving them some business, which makes the scene feel more dynamic. It's a win-win. So let me give you 5 questions to ask when you're writing your scenes to help give your characters business in a scene. And you don't need to answer all of them for every character in every scene, okay? You don't have to do that. It's just a starting place to help you figure out some business for your characters. You can combine the questions I'm going to give you if you want, but you don't have to, and you definitely don't need to be doing all of these all the time. Again, sometimes it is fine for characters to just sit and talk, especially if the scene calls for it and if it's been earned. But try to give business to the owner of the scene and then have the other characters react to what is going on, and their reactions is what gives them their business. Question 1. What would a character normally do in this space? If it's a doctor's office, what are the characters normally doing there? I mean, that's all this is. What if it's a home or a job interview? Whatever, doesn't matter. What would the owner of that space normally be doing? And this one is pretty straightforward and is a solid go-to if you don't have something for one of the next 4 questions. But you don't want to overuse this one because it makes your characters feel flat and predictable, because they will always be doing exactly what we would expect them to do in that space. So to disrupt things, give them business based on one of these 4 questions that I'm about to give you. But again, this first one is fine to do, but try to mix things up a little bit. It makes everybody happy and it keeps things from being stagnant and predictable. Question 2. What is something a character can do to exert power over another character in the space? Now this one is a great one to use when the owner of the space wants to put the other character in their place. They want to exert power over them. They want to remind them who is really in charge and who holds the cards. So what business can the owner do to remind the other characters that they are of lesser status and lesser importance? This would be like an employee coming into the boss's office to ask for a raise, but the boss is seemingly not listening, seemingly ignoring them because they're busy trimming and cleaning their fingernails, reminding the employee that the employee has no real power here. But if one character trying to exert power over another doesn't work for you, try question 3. What's something a character can do to make another character leave or feel uncomfortable? Typically, the character who enters the space wants something. They are there for a reason. They want information or permission to do something or to get their jacket they left on their last visit. But if the owner of the space doesn't want them there, what can the owner do to make them leave, or at minimum, make them feel uncomfortable? So you have a son enter his mom's home and he wants something, but mom doesn't want to deal with him. So she starts eating peanut butter, which, we think that's kind of fine, right? Just eating peanut butter. But then we remember, oh, you know what? The son is allergic to peanut butter, and the mom knows this too. The son is probably going to get uncomfortable at minimum. And if the mom starts waving the peanut butter spoon at the son, getting it close to his face, he might just up and leave and try to figure out another way to get what he wants. Make characters feel uncomfortable because of another character's business. Question 4, what's a habit or chore a character would do in the space? Maybe it's a place of business and the owner is a worker at a restaurant. Okay, what would they have to do as a chore, as just part of their job? They'd have to clean tables. They'd have to wash dishes. They might have to prep the chicken for frying. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is, but this makes the character entering the scene now an obstacle for the owner to do their chore. They're trying to prep the chicken, but the detective who just came in wants questions answered. But the chicken has to be dipped and breaded in a specific order and timed in very specific ways, and the detective is now in the way. and maybe the detective even starts doing the next question. Question 5, how is a character expected to behave in this space, and how can the character do differently? I mean, when we see the location, we have expectations for how people in that space should behave. When a detective enters a scene to interview someone, we have expectations about how they're going to conduct that interview. But when they don't behave as expected, when they have unexpected business, it makes the scene have more conflict and more issues, and it's a great way to reveal character. So if the detective in the kitchen questioning the cook who is prepping the chicken dips his finger in the batter, okay, that's going to cause all sorts of problems. And a good detective wouldn't do that, right? A good detective. But maybe this one is taking bribes and he's just a little not above board. And yes, I realize this is something that might be considered a little cliche, but I'm using this example so you can understand it. You want characters to do unexpected things like this from time to time. So however we expect them to behave, have them do business that goes against the expectations of another character in that scene. Again, if characters are only doing what we expect them to do in the location, that's our expectation, they show up and they do what we expect, and they do all that throughout the whole script, that's going to make all of your characters start to feel flat. But if some of them start trying to exert power or make other characters uncomfortable, or they do a chore we don't necessarily expect or we don't often see, so it feels new, or they start behaving in unexpected ways, these are all ways to generate business in a scene. And business, if it's not clear to you yet, is just giving the characters something to do. Okay, they're tying their shoe, they're cleaning their office, they are picking out clothes for an interview. It doesn't matter. Give them something to do. That's the business of a scene. You don't want a character just sitting there doing nothing. Give them something to do. They're packing a bag, they're making dinner. Okay, figure it out, do something, but use these questions to help you figure out how to give them some business. And again, when characters have business in a scene, it makes your script feel more cinematic, and it makes it feel like you know how to write more cinematically, which will help you get noticed and get your script recommended. If you want to learn more about how to build and write characters and scenes in your screenplay, those are 2 sections of my fast track course, which is linked below. It's like a graduate screenwriting degree all packed into one course where you can work at your own pace. And if you're interested, click the link below and check it out. I'd love to see you on the fast track to finding success as a screenwriter. But if you want to learn something else about writing characters, watch this. Don't forget about fun buttons and other links below that might be helpful to you. And when you tell a story, learn the tools that I cover in the fast track course and tell a story that matters. See you later.